I was diagnosed with a brain tumour back in February 2020, literally about 4 weeks before we all went into lockdown. My world changed 4 weeks earlier than everyone else's. You have a brain tumour. Ooh, at that point, I thought, I'm going to die.
What helped you find strength, especially in those moments where the world just felt that much more impossible?
I don't think I appreciated mental health as much until I got into this area. I think it's really easy when someone physically shows an illness and you can understand it, you can see it. But someone like me, I'm battling that in my head on my own when no one else can see me. Accepting that first and realizing that that is a proper illness, I think that was part of my journey. I think that denial is very real, especially being a South Asian male. We don't suffer mental illness or have any problems. I was looking for people to inspire me. I couldn't really find anyone because we don't really talk about it.
Being South Asians have been brought up in an environment and in a culture where we're not allowed to talk about hard things like this.
It's so good when you do learn to do it and can let people in.
It's not the norm to say I'm not feeling good, or say that I'm really struggling with this, or say that I'm not okay.
You've got to change that.
It's conversations like this that really get things started, because none of this is easy. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fearless Fireside Chats. Today's episode is one that's deeply personal to me, as I sadly lost my dad to a brain tumour back in 2004. And I know firsthand how overwhelming, isolating, confusing, and even conflicting going through an illness like that can be, not only for the individual, but for loved ones as well. I am so honoured to invite my guest onto the Fearless Sofa today. I'm joined by Sam Suriakumar, brain tumour warrior, diagnosed in 2020, and an avid fundraiser and brain tumour research ambassador. We are cutting through the noise in this episode, and it's going to be a raw one, guys. I'll be honest. It's going to be talking about all of the facets and the emotions that goes with having such a life-changing diagnosis. We are depicting the stigma that surrounds cancer, illness, not only from a South Asian and diaspora community, but just as a whole. We don't talk about cancer enough, and we don't know what it means to the individual and how that really impacts them from a mental perspective, an emotional perspective, and obviously a physical perspective. So I'm dedicating this episode to anyone that's been touched by cancer, those fighting it, those surviving it, those that we've lost along the way, and for anyone that's supporting and loving a loved one through this awful, awful, awful illness. So I hope this episode serves as a point of inspiration and really helps open up conversations around illness, cancer, well-being. And I hope that we can approach these conversations with a lot more grace, a lot more compassion, and just kindness and love. So, without further ado, I am so grateful to have you on our sofa.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sam, before we kick off with all of the stuff that we're about to cover, can you give us just a brief overview and intro into you, your story, just for anyone that may not be familiar with it?
Yeah, no problem at all. I'll try and be as brief as I can. Basically, I'm 39 years old as we sit here now, married with 2 children who are now 10 and 7, soon to be 8. I was diagnosed with a brain tumour back in February 2020, and it was literally about 4 weeks before we all went into lockdown and the entire world changed. My world changed 4 weeks earlier than everyone else's. And I was leading a very normal life until this point. I'd had no symptoms, nothing leading to tell me that there's anything going on in my body, in my brain. I was actually getting into my fitness massively. So I thought I'm actually doing my whole body a good service. So when this happened, it just came completely out of the blue. And for me, just to kind of take you through that process, because I think it's important as to how this whole thing was set up, so to speak. I work in central London. I was getting a train. I just didn't feel very well that day. I'll never forget it. So 4th of Feb, 2020, just wasn't feeling particularly great in the office. And I just thought to myself, I need to get myself home, speak to my wife, who is a GP, which is great, sometimes not so great. But no, I just thought I'd get home, speak to her. And so I got on the train at Bank Station. And for me, it's Northern Line to Morden, half an hour journey, no problem. And I thought, let me just close my eyes and sleep for the journey. So I closed my eyes at Bank Station and don't remember anything for the next 48 hours. Apparently what had happened is, as I was getting closer to Balham Station, I'd had a grand mal seizure on the train, and a really kind passenger had pulled the passenger emergency alarm to stop the train, and paramedics arrived and the drivers and everything. And apparently, me being me, once the seizure had stopped, I got up and said, "Oh, I'm fine. I'll get myself home." I don't remember any of that. And apparently I had another 2 seizures on my way to the hospital. I'm not sure whether that was at the station or in the ambulance, but something wasn't quite right, and something wasn't, I guess the problem is I wasn't able to speak to them properly. And I had no previous history for them to go off of either. So there was a lot of scans, a lot of tests. I tell you, in the midst of this chaos, funny story, while I was in the ambulance, my phone went off and it was my wife calling, and I tried picking it up, as you do when you're in an ambulance. I picked it up and I was slurring all my words. And she thought I'd left work early and gone to the pub, and I was hammered.
Yeah.
So, and then the paramedic quickly took the phone off of me, which I guess in a weird way was convenient that he was able to speak to my wife at that time, and said, "No, this is what's happened. You need to get yourself to St. George's Hospital." Now, that is really amazing for me when I look back on this whole thing, because St. George's Hospital is a specialist neuro hospital that specializes in things like this. And so I was probably in the best place I could have been to have that seizure. And yeah, so I was admitted to hospital, and everything I'm about to tell you is just kind of, from what people have told me. But I was a right pain in the backside in the hospital, because what had also happened is I dislocated my shoulder during
the way
seizure.
You'd fallen or something.
Well, apparently I seized up so much that I popped it out the back, which wasn't cool. And I was just being a pain in the ass, just complaining about that while they're trying to do scans to try and work out, what's happened here. So they put me on some pretty high tranquilizers, let's say things that knock out horses to knock me out. So unfortunately, they'd done a few scans, and I guess they started working out what was going on. And my family, we have a lot of people within the NHS, and my dad's cousin, who's a neurologist at that hospital, happened to be on call, and he couldn't treat me directly because of the family connection, but he got all the right people around me. And when I did come around, he was the one that sort of sat down on my bed and said, "Look, this is what we think
so
it is."
He gave you the news. Wow.
And he did it in such a kind way. Like, we have a good relationship, but we don't see each other regularly.
As often, yeah.
But he did it in such a kind way. For me, that conversation, brain tumor, you have a brain tumor. Whew, that's not one you hear every day. I mean, even thinking about it now is quite emotional, because I don't really remember the rest of the conversation with him.
Yeah.
I think my wife does. I think my mum may have been around. I just went into this really weird place of just nothingness almost.
Yeah.
All I could think about were my 2 girls. And I'm like, they were only 5 and 3 at the time, but I was like, I'm not going to get to see anything of them, to see them grow up, see them achieve things, see them go to university, see them get married, walk them down the aisle, that kind of stuff. And it's funny how all of that stuff just comes rushing to you. Everything else was just like nothingness. The things that were important just was like right there. So at that point, I thought, I'm going to die. I've got like, what, days to live, is it? And he was able to just kind of, we need to do more tests and work it out, but you're going to go home tomorrow. I'm going to discharge you. And I was like, wow, I'm able to go home. Okay, this is the first win in this battle. And then kind of, you have to take each step and each week and each scan and the advice of people. But I remember my my uncle saying to me, look, I'm going to put all the best people around you, all the people that I think could help you the most that specialize in this stuff. And I said, look, I trust you. Yeah, do whatever you need to. I'm up for doing whatever you need me to as well. So, and he did. He put the best people around me. My neurosurgeon, he's like the best guy ever. I can't believe what, we get along so well. I'm talking to a guy who's so well educated and qualified, and I call him mate.
Yeah.
And he calls me mate, and he knows how I need to be treated and vice versa. And we built a relationship over such a long period of time. And our first consultation was really scary and really hard. But he was like, look, mate, I've got the tumor. Give it to me in a box and let me deal with that. You go and piece everything together again. Let's get these seizures out of you, and we'll do it one step at a time. So that's exactly what we've been doing, taking it one step at a time. So regular scans, seeing how things are going. We didn't know what was exactly going on because it was in a really dangerous place to do a biopsy. So I didn't have, everything was suspected. But he saw what I was doing with my life and my fitness, and he was like, look, let's not irritate it. It doesn't seem to be, it may have grown a little bit, which is why you're having seizures now, but we can control that. You try and get back to your life. So, I mean, as hard as that sounds, like now it was the best advice, that I could have gotten, that I needed. And I'll never forget two things he said to me as we were leaving. I was like, is there anything I can do? Like tablets, medication that I can be taking more of? And he said the two main things that I've seen with patients and them getting better is having a positive attitude. You go out there, have a positive attitude because your brain does talk to everything else. And number two, your support system. Get a good support system around you that can pick you up when you're feeling down. Those are the best two things. And I was like, I don't need to do anything else. There's no I just, sitting upside down for 10 minutes. It was like, no, just do that, get that going. And to this day, I'll never, ever forget that. And that's what I keep trying to do and trying to encourage people with. But yeah, anyway, fast forward, 1 year went past, nothing else is going on. My scans are all stable. 2 years go past, scans are all stable. I'm thinking, this is looking good. I'm happy with this situation. And I think maybe that's the problem because you start going from scan to scan to, okay, how long can I do this for? Are we looking at a year, 2 years? Am I going to be here 10 years? And I guess when you rush ahead of yourself a little bit, that's when things can get a little bit tough. But in the midst of that, got into year 3, wanted to take a challenge on. Silly challenge, considering I'm not a runner. I hate running. I think I've done the maximum I've ever run up to that point was about 5K. I took on the marathon 2023, the London Marathon.
Legend.
I don't know why. But I did it. I wanted to do it for brain tumor research, for my family there, and just take on a challenge, more to say, cancer, screw you.
Yeah.
And to show people that there are things that you can do. You don't need to be isolated. You don't need to be curled up in a ball. And then, you know what? I curl up in a ball a lot of the time and cry to myself, but I also can get back up again. And I think that was the big thing, to show people that you can get back up. You can take a challenge on. And we did it. 1st of January, my friend Lee Perry that trained me, big up Lee, he got me from 1st of January to the 23rd of April. There was something significant. We had my wife's birthday, the 23rd of April. So I thought, I've got to do this now. And I ran the marathon. That was in 2023. And
it's bloody incredible, by the way, because you are telling me like, oh, I just ran in the park, but you ran the London Marathon as someone that suffers with a brain tumor, for brain tumor research. Can we just take a moment to recognize how friggin' amazing that is, and what an accomplishment to do, because it's such an iconic marathon as well. Let's just say it how it is. Oh. And for you to do that and absolutely smash it, Sam.
No, I think it's quite hard. At the time, you're just relieved at the end of it, and you're like, I did it. But as the months have gone on, and I remember watching it this year, and I was like, I've got to do this again, because it is such a lovely event. It's just a loving event. Everyone that's there is genuinely there to support you and will you on. And you're like, I can't believe I'm running this with my tumor. And it's like, I guess this kind of leads to the next part of the whole story, is that you kind of almost naively kid yourself into believing I'm doing something good actually for my tumor. Maybe I'm pounding it back and I'm doing something in the right way because your diet's clean, you're exercising every
Mm.
day. And then my next scan after the marathon finished was when everything turned around, because usually my neurosurgeon will call me back within a couple of days just on my mobile. He goes, "Mate, clear, go on, get on with your life." And he didn't call me. He hadn't called me for a couple of weeks. And I knew there was a strike going on at the time. So there was a backlog in being able to review these scans. But nothing came through 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And then we had to go as a family. That summer of 23, we had such a cool summer planned. We had a family wedding in Brazil. We had one in Greece. We had a Barcelona trip in the middle of that. So this was all in the space of about 8 weeks. So it all sort of started kicking off at the beginning of July when I went to Brazil. Within about a few hours of, I guess, landing in Brazil, my neurosurgeon called me while I was in breakfast. I got a private call number and I knew it was him. And he called me and he goes, "Mate, there's just been a slight growth in your tumor and we're going to have to do something slightly invasive on it." And he didn't know I was on holiday before he gave me that news. And I said, "Oh, I'm in Brazil." And he goes, "Oh, excellent. How are you enjoying it?" And I was like, "Yeah, not too bad." And he goes, "Look, I need to tell you, I've reviewed it and this is what's happened. We need to do something, but enjoy your holiday. We don't need to do it tomorrow or anything like that. Go and enjoy it. And I'm going to set an appointment up for you as soon as you get back." So how do you enjoy Brazil when you've
Yeah.
just been told that your brain tumor has grown?
What
I
went
don't
through
know.
your mind, like, at that moment?
It was just like felt very gloomy. I don't know as well whether I wasn't with my wife at that point because her and my girls and my sister had gone on a separate holiday to Barcelona while the boys went to Brazil to represent for this wedding. I say represent, we had a holiday ourselves with my mum and my dad,
Mm.
which was quite significant, but I wasn't with the girls. So I was like, I get very lost without having Chinli, my wife, next to me, because she's like the person that I can try and make sense of what does invasive mean, just those little things.
Mm.
And my mum and dad hadn't come down for breakfast just yet. And I was wandering around in the hallway having this conversation and they're just trying to work out. And my mum came out the lift and saw me. And I just thought, let me just try and play it without saying anything. But she knew. And I just said, I spoke to Tim and yeah, we may need to do something. And it was just, for all of us, that holiday was just a tough holiday. I said
Mm.
to everyone, we've come to Brazil for the first time. Let's enjoy it. We don't know what it is. He said it's very small. We'll work it out. We'll work
Yeah.
it out. We get through these things. But there's this dark cloud hanging over you. And I kind of just wanted to get back to Chindu and the girls and get to my neurosurgeon as quick as
Mm.
possible to find out what was going on. So that was a holiday. I think it was like something between about I think it was about 7 days or something like that. Came back to the UK, and in the midst of all of this, one of my best friends, my grandma, had had a fall, and we just thought she'd slipped because she was 87, 88 years old. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor at exactly the same time I was finding out what was going on
My
with my
gosh.
head. So she was diagnosed with a brain tumor and unfortunately passed away within a few weeks of that diagnosis. So I'm in one hospital in South London having a biopsy, waiting to have radiotherapy, waiting to have chemotherapy, and she's in a hospital in North London. And our family, I still don't know to this day how I know how we got through it, the big guy above, but that was like a storm that hit us and it was just seemed so unfair. It's like,
That's a
why?
lot. It's a lot for anyone to go through just in an isolated incident like you or just your grandma, but to have that all
Hit at
happen
once. Yeah.
at the same, like, I mean, everyone talks about resilience. If that isn't resilience building,
Do you know what though? At the beginning, I wasn't even resilient. I was just running on some autopilot because I'm still going through grief with my grandma because I couldn't deal with it at the time. I was like, I call my grandma Umzi. I got to deal with Umzi. I want to be in hospital with her holding her hand, but I've got to go and have my biopsy in a few days' time and then be ready for for radiotherapy. I was like, what do I focus on? Do I focus on me or is that selfish? Do I need to focus on her? And I couldn't work it out. And I still don't know how we as a family worked it out and where we got to, but we got to that point where Umzi sadly passed away. I've had my biopsy and my head drilled in. They know what they've got to do, but I had to wait 4 weeks or 5 weeks before they can kind of wait for the wound to heal and then start radiotherapy. So yeah, just got prepped for that. And for the last year, since September last year, I had 30 sessions of radiotherapy. And then I've had 6 cycles of 6 weeks of chemotherapy, which ended in September. And now
Wow.
here we are coming to the end of the year.
Sam, that is a
Sorry, it
lot.
was a very long story.
No, but I'm just in awe of how much you've been through in like 4 years.
Yeah, 4.5, nearly 5 years.
It's mad.
It's been a bit crazy.
I think there's so much in this that I really want to cover. First of all, from everything that you were kind of talking to me about, like how words became kind of muffled after you heard the words brain tumor. For me, I would love to understand, like, throughout this whole journey, your mental health must have been on an emotional roller coaster, up and down and somersaults and everything included. What really helped you find strength, but also pick yourself up, especially in those moments where the world just felt that much more impossible?
Well, I'll give you 2 things. I think firstly is actually just appreciating and realizing that you are in a mental battle. Because if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't think I appreciated mental health as much until I got into this area. I didn't really realize, looking back at my life, times that I have actually struggled, that I didn't know that I was in that battle. Because I think it's really easy when someone physically shows an illness and you can understand it, you can see it, that person needs some help. But someone like me who hasn't got that kind of physical that I need to show, I'm battling that in my head on my own when no one else can see me. Accepting that first and realizing that that is a proper illness, I think that was part of my journey, because I don't think I took it seriously enough. I just just pick yourself up, and I didn't respect it enough. And for me, that was stage 1 in seeing it in other people and realizing, okay, this is not just, there's a reason why people take medication. There's a reason why people seek counseling. That's a very real thing. That's a real illness. It's not a broken leg that you can see a cast on, but that's still a very real thing that requires the same kind of care. Yeah, exactly. And so that was like part 1. Understand and appreciate that there is something else that's going on here, man. Stop being this doofus that's like trying to carry all of this on yourself like you're some big shot, because you need help. You're suffering, you're sinking here. And I think once you appreciate that that is the case, you stop, because I stopped listening to people's advice as well. It's like, I know what I'm doing. And you shun that advice because you just feel that that's not me. I'm not in that category. Whereas I think that that denial is very real as well. Like, you're built to be, especially being a South Asian male, we don't suffer mental illness or have any problems. And, that label of mental illness, we're all in a box of some shape or form. And some people, are one end of it and one scale of it. And I just feel just appreciating and understanding where you are is a really, really important step. And then from there, you can go and seek help. You're looking at the right things. You're seeking the right advice. And for me, you asked me like, what picks me back up, or what do I keep in, as a focus? I got 2 amazing little girls that were blessed to me. Like, God said, here you go, look after these little angels. So that's ultimately the pickup point. Those 2 girls need me. They need their mummy and their daddy working together, working in harmony together. And they need that. They need me to be strong. They need me to be able to show them weakness as well. It's not just that daddy's strong, but they need to see me pick myself up and to keep going and to keep trying and to keep trying and to keep getting up again and keep trying again. And it's like this continuous thing they inspire me to just keep going and keep getting up. And I have this, we're talking about support network, my family, like my mum, my wife, they need me as well. And just seeing how much people have sacrificed for me to try and give me the best environment to take this therapy on in the last year, the amount of sacrifices people have given. My wife, I don't drive at the moment because of the seizures. And to take that on for Chindu for the last 4.5 years has been just, I don't even know what she goes through sometimes. And my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my in-laws, my parents, everyone, I'm like another kid now for them. So that's hard for me as well. That's a whole different conversation and battle.
I want to cover that though, because you did touch on it quite quickly around like being a South Asian man, mental health wasn't something that you actually suffered from.
Yeah.
I'm going to say in quote marks, because I'm sure there were elements of it, but maybe lack of awareness, education, maybe we didn't talk about it enough when we were all growing up, that it wasn't a thing, or it was seen as like straitjackets, and that's what mental health really looks like. And actually on the day-to-day basis, that's not it. Obviously there's so much more awareness around it now. How obviously you talked about that shift in perspective and actually owning what was happening to you and understanding that it's okay not to be okay, and knowing that there is support around there. And obviously you've detailed like how much of your like family and extended family are like kind of all rallying around you and supporting you in that way. Can you tell me about like how much has that kind of perspective or mindset shift helped you in developing how you talk to yourself, or how you pick yourself up, or how you go and fight another day? Because let's be really real here, like every day must have been such a struggle given everything you've mentioned.
You said must have been, it's not something that I've gone past. I'm struggling through stuff even now that requires me to kind of just stop and recenter and refocus. Like even throughout a day, that can happen like 5 times in a day. I can start with some irritation and I got to refocus. Okay, morning pie is okay. Something else happens and you got to go again. I think breaking down barriers to a certain degree. I'm someone that's loud. I'm someone that wears my heart on my sleeve. I don't shy away from things. I like being on stage as a musician, as a performer, and that kind of stuff. And I've just wanted to try and piece together my journey, because when I first got diagnosed and I'd kind of accepted this is what's going on, I was looking for people to inspire me, particularly as a South Asian male father. And it's not that I couldn't find, I couldn't really find anyone, because we don't really talk about it. Even as a father, South Asian male, whatever it is, we don't really talk about it, especially specific to brain tumors as well. And I thought, I'm struggling here a little bit because I haven't got anyone to really look up to or has fought this kind of battle that I can kind of ride along with that, and I can use that terminology and they get what I'm saying. Maybe my mum or my wife doesn't, but maybe someone who's been through that I can read that and it might inspire someone. So I didn't really find it too much. And one of the things that someone had advised me on was maybe start writing to myself, write a blog. It doesn't have to be to anyone else, but write like a diary almost about how you're feeling, because then you might be able to kind of get it off your chest. And that was one of the best things I ever did, because getting it off my chest and being able to face it up on, I said, a piece of paper on a screen was so therapeutic for me, because I was able to face the problem that I was actually going through and actually say, okay, this is how I'm feeling and this is what is actually going on in my head, rather than cluttering it with so many different things. The scan, the outcome, what happens in 10 years? Can I pay that fee? Can I do that? Let's clear some of this up here a little bit and work out what's going on and what can I do about it. And from that, I kind of spoke to a few people who felt that something like this would actually be really useful. And I thought it could be as well. And I thought, like, someone's got to take that step forward and talk about some of these things that are a bit difficult to talk about. And I just took that as a kind of starting point to discuss my journey a little bit more, so that people had a bit of a voice. And it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone to step out and talk. But that's kind of maybe one of my, personality traits, is maybe one of the things that I can use to my advantage to be able to help other people and inspire and encourage other people by saying, yeah, I'm having a really crap day, and that is okay. You know what? It's turned into a week, and that is okay. But I've got to get myself up, and at some point, I'm going to refocus that, and I'm going to get myself up and try again, and keep going. And so feel like maybe because I'm someone that when I hear someone and visually see something, it just clicks a bit better. I thought, let me do that. I'm not a reader as such. Please don't judge me on that. But I just thought, let me just be myself and let me take people along on the journey with me to say, yeah, crap day, no problem. Let's get up and try again tomorrow. And
I think it's that whole relatability factor as well, right? I think when you were looking for something, you were probably looking for someone that you could relate to, a story that you could be like, yeah, do you know what? I understand.
Yeah.
And I think it's so admirable, genuinely, for you to, I know obviously putting yourself out there makes you a lot more vulnerable. And I know it's not for everyone, but the fact that you took it upon yourself to put yourself out there and share your story, I guarantee you there are so many people that you have not even met before that have come across your story and have read your blog and have thought, oh my God, thank God I'm not the only one.
I really hope so, because when I feel like a baby in this whole thing, because I meet other patients that have been blogging and podcasting just like we're on here, and I'm so inspired by them and what they do, which makes me want to do more as well. And like, I learned so much, and you can only do that by being part of like you said, sometimes making yourself a little bit vulnerable. And the amount of people I've come across through starting that blog has been amazing, and the kinds of relationships. But you'll be surprised how many people, particularly within, I guess, family and such, not necessarily my own immediate circle, but who didn't understand why I started that blog or why I started talking about stuff which is personal, and why are you talking about, and it took a little bit of, not convincing as such, but I didn't let it deter me. But I thought, I'm just going to put this out there and let's see what comes from it. And so many people have kind of changed their view on it, and are actually so grateful that I did it. And I'm doing it. It's an encouragement to say, look, we're all in it together. If you need anything, I am here as a support.
Yeah.
Any questions, I could put you, I'm not a guru on this or know anything about it, but I want to maybe put you in touch with some cool people that might be able to help you.
I think, obviously, it sounds really dramatic, voice for the voiceless, but I genuinely...
So I didn't even mean it like that.
No, but I disagree with you. I think it is. I think it is the voice for the voiceless, because if we break down what that actually means, is that you are giving people permission to talk about really hard things, really personal things that we, as being South Asians, have been brought up in an environment and in a culture where we're not allowed to talk about hard things like this. We're just not allowed. It's just not what we do. We don't tell people our business. We carry on. If we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. It's swept under the carpet. And I'm going to call it for what it is. It's quite a toxic culture.
Yeah.
It is really toxic, because you're not allowing that person to feel, to be seen, to be heard, that there's a lot of shame that's passed on. I remember when my dad was diagnosed, there was a lot of fear on how that would be perceived.
Yeah. I was just about to say, like, it's almost like you've done something wrong and it's like a stain on your family, or it just
tarnished,
felt like, it's like you've done something wrong and we have to deal with this now. Not in a horrible way.
Not with any malice.
But it's kind of just put it, but it's just put away, because this is like our little secret to keep and to deal with. And we only praise the good, literally.
Yeah.
But this is meant to be something really bad. It is bad. It's bad because the situation is horrible, but that's nobody's fault.
Yeah.
And that's where you need as much love and support as you possibly can.
And I think it's really hard because, like I said, like, these are our family and friends and they love us and they want the best for us, but they don't. I think it's come from a place where it's not the norm. It's not the norm to say I'm not feeling good, or say that I'm really struggling with this, or say that I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And I think those words sound so simple.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time, but such small words that sound so simple have the most amount of weight
Yeah.
because it means the most. And sometimes I'd say it's just about hearing
Yeah.
and being and listening.
Yeah. Listening is a big one.
And no judgment.
No judgment. Because sometimes I talk to people and they want to give you advice on that immediately. And sometimes, yeah, the advice is wicked, but actually I just need you to listen to me right now. And if I'm talking absolute rubbish, let me talk rubbish for a little bit, because I just need to talk rubbish. And, what I was saying to you before about accepting help from a mental health perspective is also just accepting help, because even now to this day, my brother and my sister will call me up sometimes. Why didn't you tell us that you had that scan that day, or you were having these blood tests? And it's me breaking down. Look, I'm the older brother. You don't need to worry about me. I'm fine. And actually letting them in a little bit because they want to pray for me, or they just want to use that time to think of me. And that means a lot to them. And I'm still learning how to do that. But it's so good when you do learn to do it and you can let people in, because if you're feeling a bit crap going into that scan, you can actually I can drop my brother a message and go, dude, just pray for me quickly, please, because I'm struggling. So I'm not good at it, but it's so useful. And the more of us that talk about it and the more of us that get together and do it, the more of us that are going to be in a much better position to deal with these crappy situations, because they are going to come our way, and we need to be prepared and equipped to deal with it. And that comes through supporting each other.
And I think that's so powerful because, as you said, being a South Asian, especially like you were saying, you're quite loud and you're an extrovert.
Cheers,
and you're
thanks.
big personality and everything else in between. But I think it's really it's so much harder for someone being that kind of person and that kind of in that kind of role per se. Like, you're the eldest in your family, you're a husband, you're like the provider and all of that, and then to suddenly be like, actually, guys, I'm struggling. I need help.
Yeah, we flip that, things like you said, the provider. I'm not the provider. My wife looks after us and looks after that whole function of, provision almost. And we all work together like that. It couldn't, from a cultural point of view, we couldn't have split it and torn it up in any other way. It's her career and what she's been doing that's been supporting us. And my kids as well. It's just this last year, especially, I just couldn't get out of bed at certain points. And she took that whole thing on, and she took that mantle on. And again, that's a cultural thing that we don't appreciate sometimes. Well, we gotta change that. We gotta change that narrative.
And I think it's like this. It's conversations like this that really get things started, because none of this is easy. Let's be really honest. It takes the hard work to look at yourself, to look inwards and actually see life for what it is. And okay, these are the cards that we've been dealt. How are you going to best play this?
Yeah.
Because we can't change these cards.
No.
And actually, how can we make a good thing out of a shitty situation? Let's be really honest. And I think there's a lot of masking in how we show up, because we feel like we've got these roles that are predetermined, not by us, but just by the order of life. You were born first, then you've got your siblings, And I think there's a lot in it, because I'm like you, I'm the eldest, and I find it I offer help. I can never receive help.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I find it very difficult to. You don't need to look after me.
No,
I look after you.
I've got this. Yeah. I know my job. I'm good.
No, exactly. I've got this. You don't need to worry about me at all.
We've talked a lot about the stigma associated to cancer, being unwell, roles that we have within our culture, families, whatever. What's the one or two stigmas that you would love to address or break or smash?
I guess we kind of are addressing it to a certain degree here as British Asians and in the Western world is this stigma of kind of male, female, massive difference between the two, because that's so far from the truth and it has held people back for so long. And being able to just dissect through that and realize that all of our jobs are equal, all of our responsibilities are equal, and be able to culturally kind of get ourselves up to that point would be amazing, because it's not a kind of it's your job because that's the way we've always done it. It's your job because you're going to be coming home at 5:30 and I'm coming home at 7 today. So you could pick that. Do you see what I mean? It becomes a practical thing rather than a cultural thing that someone just does that because that's the way it's always been. So that would definitely be something from a stigma point of view, like that we could look at. But I guess I said number one. I guess the number one thing really is talking to each other. I know it sounds really silly, but we can be so closed off as human beings. We can only celebrate the wins. We don't support the losses. We don't even celebrate the losses. We don't take that. We just and being able to talk and being able to be more open. I look at it in my own family and how much more beneficial it is when we do talk and when we can open up and what can be done and how much more you can achieve, rather than kind of shutting yourself off from the world and being very, I don't know, just holding on to stuff which is just like stones and baggage. And I say that from my own faith, from a Christian point of view, is that's what's centered. We were talking before about, like, you know, when you're down, what picks you up. My girls, of course. But one thing I didn't mention is my faith, God. And that's the bedrock on which everything is built on. And so when I take that concept of love and kindness and support, being able to talk to each other kind of stems from kindness and love and support. Do you see what I mean? Like, just trying to piece that together, that's where you will find help, and that's where you will find it more comfortable to open up to someone. And you've got to be able to offer that out. It works both ways for someone to feel accepted. So I would love to be able to just keep myself encouraging people to talk to one another. And it doesn't have to be like, you know, a group of 20 people on a WhatsApp. It could just be one person or two people that you find comfort and support in. But talk to them and find them. Don't just shut it off. Don't just kind of ignore the feelings. Build on them. Build on being able to share them. And I feel if people do that, like, it makes such a big difference, because there is like this physical weight off of your shoulders. Like, we're carrying sacks of stones that we don't need to be. And people want to help us with that.
It's okay to put it down.
So it's okay to put it down as well. Do you know what I mean? And some people do want to help you with it. They might not know how to say it. All I would say is, like, I know when I was first diagnosed with this, some people were like, dude, I don't know what to say to you, but I love you and I'm really hoping things get better. It's better to say something than absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, let's talk to each other. Let's talk to each other honestly. We have no excuse not to talk to each other. We have every form of technology and telecommunication to be able to send a message or something. So I'd really love to kind of work on that.
I think that's so powerful, because the power that a simple conversation holds, it could be so transformative to some person's day. Like,
honestly.
And simple word, like I always say, like, simple words can mean the world to someone. And I think it comes from being open and being compassionate and coming with a lot of grace and a lot of kindness. And I think things like grief and things like illness and cancer especially, it scares people. And I think people's natural default is, when they're uncomfortable, when they're scared, is to retract. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to leave it. And they know that I'm thinking of them.
Yeah. That is the worst. I mean, look, it's the worst thing and the best thing. I mean, it's nice that people are thinking of them. You don't need to be battering someone with 100 messages in a day, because that
no one needs that.
I know what that feels like as well. But then there are some people, you know, I remember when I was going through this, there are moments where I'm like, where has this person been for me? Like, we spent so much time together doing X, Y, Z, and I haven't heard from this person in so, so long. Just a simple message would just
Mm.
change my day right now. So, and it's okay. I know people have got, busy lives. We all have so many different things that we're chasing and run around with. And that's a whole conversation for another day. But just taking a second out of your day to let that person know that you thought of them just for those few seconds makes a huge difference. Massive, massive difference.
Yeah.
Massive difference. So that's why I say communication. Like I try to encourage that as much as possible.
Just on that, for
Yeah.
anyone listening that is currently going through cancer, fighting their battle, or has a loved one that is fighting their battle, what would your advice be to help them show up for them in the way that they need to?
Anyone going through a cancer battle right now, all I would say to you, I've got a lot to say and I would love to say, turning up every single day is the hardest thing to do. And it's very easy to not turn up. Turning up is a really hard thing. Just by getting up and trying is you're doing so much already. And don't let anyone else make you feel or give you an opinion or advice on what you're doing. It's your body that's going through that. So turning up is already a huge, huge thing and build on it. Just little one step at a time. And you might have to take 2 steps back to go 4 steps forward. I know so many different stories with people on their therapy where they've had to stop or they've had to pause or they've had to reduce. And sometimes you feel really defeated by that. It got the better of me. I know I did. The first time I was taken, I was really struggling and I was like, I thought I would sail through it. And I was like, oh man, the cancer's winning, round 2 to the cancer. And I was like, nah, I've got to get this thinking out of my head. I'm making this choice to kind of attack this thing on my terms. Yeah, it's hard. And if I need to take a bit of advice to step back and hold back, that's okay. If I need a day to just lie in bed, that's okay as well. But just keep trying. As hard as it is, just keep getting yourself up and trying to go again because you're already winning when you're there, when you've got that mentality. And it's not every day's I think sometimes people with me as well, they think I'm waking up, I'm bouncing out of the bed, and all I'm doing is just smiling all day. No, I'm not. I'm really struggle. All of these things will go to your mind, and you've just got to fizzle them out, fizzle them all out, and kind of I say fizzle, filter them all out. And get back to that central point that we were talking before as to why you're doing certain things and what you're doing and achieving. And we all have 100 points on our to-do list and, things we want to achieve. But just, again, filter all of that down. What's the one thing that I can do today and achieve today that's going to make a difference? Maybe that's just getting up and turning up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be this massive tick box thing that you've done. I mean, when it is, it's great,
Yeah.
but just turning up, honestly, I promise you that's a massive tick box in itself.
I love that. And one thing that your surgeon said to you, or your consultant said to you about positive mind, I thought that was really powerful because your mind is what tells the rest of your body to act and what to do.
What to do.
And that is honestly, that has been just watching your story as an outsider. I think that's a common thread in all of this because yes, you have shit days and yes, you have hard days and yes, you're in a ball crying thinking, how the hell am I going to get through this? But I think the one thing that is resounding to me is the way that you talk to yourself and what you say to yourself.
I'll tell you what that comes from is my faith in God. It's not me even talking to myself. It's
so
me
powerful.
knowing that I'm loved and that I am safe regardless of everything else that's going on around me. And that's kind of me talking to myself by me talking to God. He's like my best mate. And I'm like, come on, I cannot do this on my own. Help me, give me something to focus on, give me like a song or give me, let someone send me a message now or something silly like that. And he always does. He turns up in the most random of ways. I could even tell you, but he always, and I feel like, that positivity comes, that energy comes from there. And it's important to kind of bring that. I really do feel it's important. It changes everything. I wish I could like actually have a calculation on how much better you receive your treatment or how much better you do to your body on a day-to-day basis just by having a positive mindset.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely feel like it makes a difference. Like I can deal with man flu a lot better if I'm happy. Does that make sense? Or if I'm
Yeah,
feeling in a crappy place.
100%.
Man flu is like
But
going to
there
go
must
on.
be. There you go, researchers. There's one for you. You've got to do
Yeah.
some sort of research.
Tell me what it is. I mean, I know, they talk about all these, hormones and stuff that are going through your body, and I'm sure that's a tangible way of doing it, but just how much of a difference it makes.
Yeah.
When I walk into my scans, when I walk into my consultations with a happy face, or even when I walk in there with a sad face, the way someone approaches you, the kindness people show you can really flip that on its, on its head. So on its head. Don't
No
flip me
pun
on my head.
intended.
But yeah, I think that positivity, that positive energy, if you can find it, draw it from somewhere, draw it from something, draw it from someone, make a big difference.
I love that.
Huge difference.
If you could go back in time.
Gosh, yeah.
And
how far back are we talking about?
And speak to the Sam from the day that everything changed, 4th of February, 2020. What would you say to him?
I'd give him a big slap and say, what have you been wasting your time and your life for? Because I don't regret anything, because it's brought me to this point here. It brought me to my wife, brought me to my girls. And I really believe every stupid decision I've made in life and every great decision I've made in life, they all counted and fit the puzzle
They got you
me
to where you are now, isn't it? Yeah.
But I say I slapped myself because it's like I was looking so far forward, and I wasn't appreciating anything that was in front of me, anything that I had, any of the relationships that I had. And I was just looking for the next thing, the next big car, the next holiday, the next house, the next this, that, the other, rather than seeing and appreciating everything that was in front of me. And I began, I know it's going to sound really weird, but sometimes the tumor is a blessing in that respect, because it does wake you up and go, oh, these are the important things to me in life. This is what I should be focusing my time and my attention to, not these passing things. And I just would just tell myself to focus. Do you know what I mean? Up to that point, it is what it is, but I've been given so many blessings and I'm just not appreciating any of them. So just, focus on that real stuff, relationships, people's in the moment, not things that are to come. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Today is what you affect. So
I love that. Thank you so much, Sam, for
having me.
For being so open and vulnerable and just honest and raw with your journey. I can't believe you've gone through everything you've gone through in less than 5 years and are still standing with a smile on your face and inspiring us and inspiring change. And I think it's such a important message that you have. And I think, honestly, I know you've helped me change my perspective on things and see how I see things from a well-being, but also a mental health perspective, but also how I show up for people that are going through such tough things like this. And I really hope this episode does serve as a reminder for all of the crap that comes with cancer, and not just the actual cancer, but all the baggage that comes with it. So thank you again.
No, thank you. I really hope it was helpful to someone.
It was
inspiring, encouraging to someone. That's it.
Oh, I'm really grateful to have you here.
Very welcome.
For anyone listening, we will drop some links to helpful kind of resources and tools that can help you or your loved one going through such an awful time. As always, we are always here to help and support wherever we can. But for now, stay brave, stay bold, and keep being fearless. Until next time.